Guys, if you're using the same model most of the time, you're probably costing yourself a lot of time and money. The model landscape has been really shook up in the last few weeks. We're seeing models like Grok 4.5 with Fable level intelligence, but 9 times cheaper. Chinese models like Kimi K3, which are really good design, but they're cheating a little bit, and we'll talk about that later. It's not straightforward which model you should use anymore. In this space, even Cursor has come out with a model router, which automatically picks the right model for the right task, which supposedly saves you on tokens and time. I'm Rob from Switch Dimension. I have 20 years of software development experience and over 3 years with coding with agents, and I want to show you how I pick a model. I use 4 different models on any normal working day, and there is a reason for each one. First, let's look at a couple of different ways to evaluate models, and later the one approach I use to personally rank every new model that comes out. Thanks to NeonDB for sponsoring this video. More on them later. So the first mistake I see people doing is always going for the smartest model based on benchmarks. So let's have a quick chat about benchmarks. An independent organization writes a test, then the model providers run their own model against the test, and then they report the score. So that last part is the sketchy part. They run the test themselves, and then they publish their own marks for the test. The provider gets to pick the harness, what tools it can use, how many times it's allowed to retry. You get the picture. It can be really easy to game these benchmarks. So benchmarks are actually very useful. I just wouldn't take them at face value. So where it gets more and more useful is when you can find a benchmark that's specific to your use case. Recently, a React bench has come out specifically testing models that work on React. So maybe you're working in .NET or you're in Unity and game development. It could be useful to find a benchmark that's specifically fit for what you're working on. If you want to explore benchmarks and comparisons, I highly recommend checking out Artificial Analysis. They even run their own benchmarks against the models. Arena.ai gives a crowdsourced model ranking. And if you're specifically interested in web and graphic design, you should check out Design Arena. If you go to OpenRouter and rankings, you can actually get a pretty good breakdown of what models people are actually using on a weekly basis. So you can actually see where people are spending their money on tokens, which can be a very good indicator. What's super interesting from OpenRouter in the last couple of weeks is the market share towards Chinese models has increased significantly, and they now have a greater market share than the previously super popular US models. Another thing to keep an eye on is models are getting very good at image and 3D generation. They know that creators on X and YouTube, just like me, love to showcase very visual indications of how good a model is. They might not be the best at back-end engineering. This is something that you're going to have to test for yourself. So when you go to artificial intelligence, you'll be presented with this kind of a chart. It gives you the most intelligent model on the intelligence index. Traditionally, what people did was pick the most intelligent model and fire it at everything that they do. The smarter thing to do is to use the right model for the right task based on its speed, its cost, its context window, its effort zone, etc. So maybe I'll use GPT or Opus or Fable for orchestration, but in terms of documentation, I might use a lower level model like a Sonnet Composer or something else like that. If I'm doing a ton of verification at scale, I might use a cheaper open-weight Chinese model, making sure that it's hosted appropriately in a place that I can trust. If you're building anything that needs real infrastructure, databases are usually the part that slows you down. You need to go get it set up, get the permissions in order, connect, and make sure it stays available. For an easier life, I've been using Neon for the last few years. What I like is how fast it is to go from idea to a working backend. With the Neon CLI, I can spin up a Postgres instance in seconds, create a fresh branch for a feature or a test environment, no over provisioning, no managing separate databases for every single environment. So in Cursor or Claude Code, I have it paired with the MCP and the CLI for Neon. You can easily add it to Cursor or Claude Code as a plugin. If you like the old-fashioned way, Neon has a great dashboard for connecting, setting up branches, integrations, viewing your tables, etc. However, I like to give my agent as much power as possible. When it's doing migrations or updates, I want it to be able to check against the actual database to see if everything went okay. And an agent can see the database and understand what's going on is going to do a much better job. The likes of Meta, Retool, BCG, Bitso, Framer, Replit are all using Neon under the hood. So if you want Postgres that feels like it was made for fast iteration, agents, and shipping, RobShox viewers can check out Neon for free in the link in the description. What you're going to see a lot more of this year is the concept of model routing, and specifically automatic model routing. So in the last couple of days, Cursor reduced their own Cursor router. So this means that whenever you prompt the agent, it goes and picks the best model or balance of model based on the task that you're trying to complete. And this can end up in some significant cost savings. And they're not the only company attempting to crack the model routing problem. OpenRouter has Model Fusion. Even some attempts at new model approaches out of Japan called Sakana Fugo basically picks the best model to tackle complex multi-step tasks. So I'd encourage you to start thinking about your models in a different way, not just about the token usage, but the actual cost per task. So the token output and input of a model can be quite low, but how many tokens does it actually take to get a job done? So in the case of Kimi K3, it actually has a really low token input and output, but it actually ranks pretty high in terms of cost because it spends a lot more time thinking about the designs that it's working on. So you need to think about cost per task. Artificial analysis has a really good intelligence versus cost quadrant. So everything showing up here in this green section is favorable. It means that it's reasonably priced for the amount of intelligence that you're getting. So if it wasn't hard enough to pick the right model, you also have to pick the right reasoning level. So it really does differ for each one of these models. You've got low, fast, medium, high, multiple different settings, and there can be a difference of 4 times the cost when you move from medium to high, extra fast, etc. There's so many different variations. What I would say is just think about these variables on the top: accuracy, how fast you want it completed, cost sensitivity, and then really with your task, start off on some of the lower to medium settings just to see if it gets the job done. If you're not having any issues at that medium level, maybe even take it down a level to see if you can do it cheaper, and then find your sweet spot based on the task that you're working on. So next up, you want to think about the actual API provider. Many of us get our models directly from the companies themselves, like through Anthropic subscription or from ChatGPT. But there are many different API providers, and considering that a lot of these models are now open source, you really need to think about who is the provider source for your model. One of the most interesting things to me is the actual provider speed and cost. If you're hosted over here on something like Cerberus, you're going to get super fast token throughputs for the model. So I like to use Composer 2.5 quite a bit. By the time this video comes out, maybe it's Composer 3. It's great to do pair programming with because the speed at which it iterates and the tokens come through, you can actually get a lot of done when you're working one-on-one in terms of design. Depending on your company standards, you might have strong requirements around where the model and how the model is being hosted. Is it in the EU, the US, in China? What are the security protocols and compliance levels with each one of these providers? The amount of context your model had used to be a really big deal, and it still is, but less so. A lot of the providers offer a 1 million token context window. So once you start to run out of context, that's completely forgotten. Remember, in your context, you need to be able to account for your code base, conversations, MCPs, skills, and as the conversation progresses, you rapidly start to run out. You can use the usage settings inside in Cloud Code and also in Cursor to pop up these little dialogues to see exactly where you stand. Usually when I hit 50-60%, I like to either start a new conversation or summarize or put the learnings that we've made from this one conversation into a MD file. So you can see here all the model providers and the amount of context window that they have. It's not the most important factor for me, but it is one to consider if you've got a very large code base. Okay, so concretely, here's what I'm using right now. So typically I'm going to use Fable or Opus for what I would call big work. So at the start of creating a new feature, when doing planning or coming up with some new designs. When it comes to precise work where I want to refactor existing code, or maybe I want to do some code implementation, I like to use GPT models. It's not too over enthusiastic and it really does do exactly what you ask it to do. Also, in terms of image gen, the GPT Image 2 model is by far the best at the moment. And then up and coming, we have the likes of Kimi K3, which is released just in the last couple of weeks. Very good at design. Now, the way it's good at design is it's using more thinking time. So there is more tokens being used. But in my tests, it actually comes up with some really great design. So if you're web design, graphic design, or putting slides together, it's well worth taking a look. Grok, which has come out from SpaceX and is also trained by the team at Cursor, is actually really well priced for its intelligence levels. In some cases, it's 9 times cheaper than the likes of Fable, and it's almost as good. So it can be a really good go-to. I like to use Composer for speed because this is a model that just has such a high token throughput. I think it's something like 280 tokens. When I'm doing quick wireframes, refactors, you can see the changes to design happen rapidly in front of you and you can provide feedback. And then down here in third place, we have the Gemini models. They are reasonably good models, but I don't tend to use them all that much. However, I would use Gemini Notebook quite a bit for research and learning. So one thing that is actually super valuable is going and building your own benchmarks. So it sounds like a really big job, but here's one I had Cursor create for me. Basically, just take 5 prompts from your real work, a component that you might actually build, a bug, a refactor that you did, code that you understand, and save them. And then every time a new model comes out, just run those 5. And this is way better than every public leaderboard combined because nobody can train on it, nobody optimized for it. It measures the one thing that you care about, which is how this model actually handles your work. 5 prompts, that's it. It'll beat every chart in this video for your specific purposes. If you like this kind of breakdown, I highly recommend checking out switchdimension.com. I have a whole course around teaching you how to build apps with agents and AI. You can jump onto the waitlist. There is a new cohort coming soon.